Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar Wednesday series for the Caribbean Strategy Summit 2024. Our theme for the summit this year is breaking barriers and overcoming obstacles in strategy execution. So leading up to the summit, Strategy Plus, in conjunction with the BSI, the Balanced Scorecard Institute, usually hosts a series of webinars to assist in sparking your enthusiasm for the upcoming CSS by providing an overview of each of the CSS 2024 symposium feature lectures, a mere preview of the summit events to come, and offering just a hint of the strategy execution gems that lie ahead. So webinar 3, hosted today, the topic is aligning and operationalizing strategy. So today we're going to learn how to discover and how to bridge gaps between strategy formulation and execution by aligning and operationalizing your organization's strategy. In this session, you'll be able to learn the key steps to ensure your strategy is cascaded throughout the organization and translated into actionable initiatives. Today, our host is Adam Ash. Adam is a senior consulting associate of the Strategy Management Group / Balanced Scorecard Institute. Adam is a business strategy and digital transformation leader with over 15 years of consulting experience driving solutions and has served in management and leadership positions internationally. Adam has a history of solving challenging global process problems by applying appropriate agile and lean adaptive frameworks to drive recommendations. In addition, he has led various collaborative projects that made his recommendations a reality. So at this time, I want to hand you over to Adam Ash. Adam?
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for that great introduction. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today. Really, what we're talking about is one of the major problems that we see, or the challenges or the opportunities that we have when we are trying to apply our strategy to get things done. So maybe you have these issues, maybe you don't, but I think a lot of us can relate to some of the areas that we see problems in all of the time and challenges for our organizations. And what I hear most often is we just want results. We want to get things done, and we're having some trouble doing those. Now, this slide's got a lot on it. It's not meant to be read really, but I'll just tell you generally that the idea is that most times when I go into an organization and we're talking about helping define their strategy, I'm hearing things like this. We have trouble making decisions and getting things done. And when we disagree, we just have more meetings about trying to agree rather than moving forward with work. And so we focus all of our energy on getting things done or trying to get our work done, and we don't really spend time trying to plan the future, trying to understand if we're aligned to our strategic goals. People are always saying we need more capability, more capacity, more ability to get stuff out the door. And we keep prioritizing things. And then we've done agile, and we're still not getting enough done. We still need more and more people all of the time. Because we're doing all of this work, because we have all of these people, they are overworked. They're not feeling as if they're part of the organization. They're not feeling like they're being supported and taken care of. So they're burning out, especially now that people are home and don't have those same social interactions as we did in the office. They're kind of left alone in their own environment, and they don't feel the support. A lot of that is because we're not engaging them along a strategic path that they can align to and understand how what they do contributes to the rest of the organization. And I hear this all of the time. We're doing everything we can. And I believe people are. They're trying new methodologies. They're trying their strategy. They're trying to reform their teams. And they're still finding some problems. So what do they need? What do you need? Consistency. You need consistency and agreement that what we're trying to achieve and the rules we're playing by, the way we do things in our organization are the same. We use the same language to mean the same things, and we're trying to align and achieve the same results. We want to make sure that we have clarity on what we're trying to measure and what success means, because there's lots of different kinds of metrics. There are metrics that tell us how well we're doing the work we do. There are metrics that tell us if we've done the work. And there are metrics that tell us if the work we've done is actually helping us impact our customers, our communities, our business. They're not the same thing, and yet we tend to focus on one of those and not all of them for each and every objective. And ultimately, what we want is some clarity. We really want to understand what it is that we're trying to achieve, what we're aligned to it, what is my responsibility to it, and then how do I deliver those things? And we talk about strategy, and that's what we do, right? That's what I come into organizations and help with. How do you align and define what you're trying to achieve, your mission, your vision, your values? What are you trying to achieve in your organization? Now, that's great, and I want you to do that. I want us to all have a really great strategy. But that's not enough. What we see in organization is that if you look at this illustration, that number one kind of encompasses our strategy. We want our strategy to align with our executives, with what our board or whoever's defined what our outcomes need to be. We want to align with that. We define our business objectives. These are the things we want to see. Then we talk about what that looks like in our portfolio. And then we ultimately define some initiatives. And very often, that's the end of our strategy process in organizations. We have strategic objectives, we've cascaded them. Maybe they're tier one, maybe we've cascaded them to tier two. And then we say, okay, strategy's done, and we'll talk to you later. What we're missing is that number two in here. It's how do you bring those business objectives and initiatives into your system of capability, right? What are you able to do and deliver? Whether it's a development organization, you're developing code, whether you're creating new products and physical products, whether you're doing pharmaceutical, whether you're doing services, whether you're doing financial, it doesn't matter. What it does matter is that it's not enough just to say this is what we want to achieve. We have to bring that all the way down to the level of who is doing the work, what do they need to be able to do before the work gets done, and then how do we sequence that work? That's strategy and action. And that's what we're talking about today. How do I really get that strategy I've defined into the hands of people that do the work? And what happens when we don't? And what happens when we don't is what I call the yes effect. That every time we do planning, we may or may not align very well with strategy. Sometimes we are very well aligned with our strategy. Sometimes we're not. But in some organizations, what we see is that as we begin to do the work, somebody or some group of people start adding work to the pile. They say, hey, I know we said we were going to do this, but I need this too. I know that we agree that we're aligned with this, but I want this as well. So two things are happening here. One is that even though we've set up ourselves with a really great strategy, we have people that are undermining those efforts because the rules of our game are don't start the work based on your strategy and line, but they're saying, well, I don't care about that. I want my thing too. So having leaders and executives that actually support the choices we've made throughout the process is critical for this. But when we don't have that, when we have people adding work, we get what I call this yes effect, when they want us to do everything. They'll never say no to anything. They say yes to everything. Can we add this? Yes. Should we add this? Yes. Do we have to add this? Yes. And that creates what we see here. We have an increase in, we've already planned our work. Then we have an increase in unplanned work. We haven't really planned for the unplanned work. So now what are we doing? We're overwhelmed with what do we have to do here? How does it incorporate into what we've already done? Does it affect what we've done already? Does it affect our throughput and quality? Does it, all those things? That's what happens when we have unchecked, unplanned work into our space. What also happens is because we have this unplanned work, we tend to have reduced our throughput and quality, which increases rework and technical debt. And so what happens? The work we were supposed to deliver kind of gets subsumed by trying to keep all of this stuff up in the air. And so now we've delivered either less, things that are not as good, and things that aren't necessarily linked and aligned to the objectives and the outcomes we're trying to achieve through our strategy. So what can we do? The first thing we need to do is define what we mean by value in the organization. And so these are some examples of words that we use. You can use, if you use these words, you might have different meanings, but as long as in our organization we're using the same word for the same thing, that's helpful. So for instance, if I want to talk about outcome, I'm talking about a measure of potentially impactful things. Things that I build, produce, or deliver that actually, I believe, will help me achieve my ultimate goal. An output is not necessarily a valuable thing. It's something that helps us understand if something has happened, a measure of things in time. We've delivered 20 widgets in 10 hours. That tells us something maybe about performance. It might tell us something about timelines and budget, but it doesn't really tell us about value. It tells us that we've done something, but it doesn't tell us if it's actually helped us achieve our goal. That's what an outcome does. We have both things, right? We have work that needs to get done that could be measured by output. And then we have work that needs to get done that could be measured by outcome. We know this thing is going to be helpful to do something later. Feedback is critical, whether it's internal systems or external people, users, customers, clients, our neighbor, our friends, whoever can help us. Any feedback we get is good feedback, whether it's positive or negative. Positive feedback probably means we're doing something well. Maybe we should look into why people like that and we could do more of it. Negative feedback may mean, hey, we're not doing something as well. Let's look into that. Feedback is just information that gives us an opportunity to make a decision and do some analysis. Value is something that I say is a measure of proximity of something towards the strategic goal or outcome or objective that we're trying to achieve. So what do I mean by that? Well, if I'm trying to increase the number of people that use my product, the measurement is increase the number of people that use my product. If I want to decrease the number of people that actually do a behavior that I don't want anymore, I'm going to measure the decrease. So what we're saying, the value is how close we are to achieving that goal. It could be a negative, it could be a positive. But what we're saying is that's what we're going to measure. What is that actual thing? It doesn't have to be complicated. And ultimately, our initiative or the project or the set of things we do to achieve our goal becomes that set. We put them together, and this initiative will have some outcomes, will have some impacts, and we'll have some output, and we're going to measure those things. The important part here is that when we measure things, we're measuring the outcomes. Here's what I've delivered, and the impact. Here's how what I've delivered has affected our system. So we need both leading indicators. Hey, I finished the thing I said I was going to finish. Here it is. And the lagging indicator. At some point later, that thing I did is going to help us achieve the goal. Increase the number of users, decrease the number of users, what I've set for that. And so that's what we're trying to do there is not just deliver what we believe is going to help us make a change, but then measure the change. What happens in many organizations is because we have so many things in production or out into the world, or we're pushing everything out at once, we lose the trail of what actually helped us get to the impact or the metric that we were trying to get to. So if I have 5 things going out into the world, it's easier for me to see what may have impacted towards my goal than if I have 200 things going out. And what happens is, since we have so many things going out, and we tend to either not look at our impact, or we get our impact so late that we've moved on, we tend to just keep moving on. And that causes lots of repeat work. We don't know why we've achieved our goal, so we keep repeating work over and over again because we just don't know. So ultimately, what we want to do is understand how to choose the best things repeatedly. So what I've done, and I'm showing you as an example today, is I've taken our strategic framework of our business scorecard, and I've extended it to how do we actually now take the initiatives that we're trying to achieve, What do we actually need to do to get the work done to achieve our goals, and prioritize it and deprecate what's not important based on a few things, which I'm going to share with you. The first thing is understanding business value versus performance, or sometimes I like to call that impact versus sufficiency. And what I mean by that is, for each thing we plan to do, and each of these dots represents a thing that we plan to do, we have to think about, do we expect this to give us a big impact towards our goal? Do we think if we do this, we'll see a big move of the needle? Or do we think it's going to be a lower impact, but some? We wouldn't have chosen it if we didn't believe there would be no impact. So we think, what does the impact look like? And I prioritize those. I say this thing would give me the highest impact. This thing would be lower impact. Great, that gives me one data point. Now I have an idea of what I believe based on not just me, but the groups of people I'm working with. And of course, we're working with people across the organization. So I'm talking to people from product and people from legal and people from support, because all of those people have insight into this. But now that I've defined what I think is going to give me a big impact, I have to also think about, is this already something we do well enough? I've had in many organizations a situation where we actually choose to do something because, let's say, bring in new and exciting new technology, but it turns out that what we're doing already is perfectly fine. We don't need any new technology. So for instance, I worked with an organization. They were looking to bring in new e-commerce hardware and software, and they decided that that was the most important thing. But when I asked them, is your current e-commerce system sufficient to do the job you need? Does it do it well enough? Every time I ask them a question, does it do this? Yes. Can it do this? Yes. Do you need to do this? Yes. So they've told me that they thought it was going to have a high impact, but their current system already does what they wanted to do. It's already sufficient. So they didn't need that new stuff, and they actually deprecated it. This is what this helps to understand. We don't want to do work that we don't need to do. We want to focus on things that are going to help us move forward to achieve our goals. So in this case, what we've done is we've mapped impact versus efficiency. And what we see in the lower right quadrant are things of high value, high impact, but low sufficiency, low performance. They're not doing what we want them to do. Great. The things that we see in yellow, they're sufficient. We probably don't have to do anything with them. The things in green, we don't even have to touch. So when we map these, we know we're already eliminating things that we don't need to actually do, which helps us immediately reduce the amount of things that we're doing at any given time. Great. But that's not enough, because if that was enough, that just gives us a little more prioritization of our current strategy and removes things that aren't going to help us achieve those goals. We need to go down one more level, and that's where we connect our strategy to operations. We need to know this. How urgent is the thing we need? How quickly do we need it? Are we responding to a competitor or the market? Is there a change in our business plan or our product? Whatever that is, we need to determine, do we need to do this now, quickly? Do we have a little bit of time, maybe within the quarter? Or is this a longer term thing that we have time to build and work towards? The other part is our capability and capacity to do the work. Because just because we said something's important, and just because we said something is going to be high impact, doesn't mean we're able to do it the way we expect to do it right now. So we also have to consider, do we have the capability and capacity to do it? So in this case, capability and capacity could be the technical capability and capacity, marketing capability and capacity, all kinds of good stuff. So that's the thing we're trying to see. So what we do here is now we're seeing this chart that says, okay, urgency versus capability and capacity, speed of need versus ability. So we see in the lower right-hand quadrant now we have things that are what? We have a high ability to execute, and we need them urgently. So now we see that these are the things we can do right away. And as we move up, we might find that we have some things that we have a lower ability and we can't do it. So here's what we look at. Put them all together and we say we have on the right, their high value and high need. On the lower right, on the lower left, we have low value and low need. We can remove those. On the upper left, we have high value and low need. We can remove those. And on the right, we have high value, high performance. That means those are already doing great. So the first thing we do in organizations is what? I'll tell you. We actually have to get to good enough. So what we're looking for is, let's take the things that we are not as sufficient in and bring them to good, sufficient. And the reason we do that is, in many places, what we see are a mixture of quality of goods and services. Some things are spectacular, some things aren't so great. We want everything to be good enough, and then we can choose, right? Get to good enough first. Then we can differentiate. Now I can look at what are the things that are good enough and determine which of those I want to be a market leader or differentiate me from another similar type of business. For instance, if I have a phone company, let's say I'm a wireless carrier, for instance, why do I go to one wireless carrier versus another? I only need to make phone calls or send texts or browse the web. So why can't I just go to any phone company? If that's all you need, you probably can. They probably all do those equally well. They're all sufficient. But one company might have better bandwidth for streaming. One might have better bundled packages for different types of services that you like. One might have a better network for the region you live in or a place that you like to travel. So those are the ways that you actually differentiate. You're not going to compete with them against the basic services and needs, right? The basic functions. You're going to compete against the things that you want to show that you do better. So that's how we start really bringing this down into the actionable level. What it looks like is this, that we have our strategic themes and our objectives. We look at our initiatives and programs and projects, but then we really have to break them down into what is the work we have to do. We have to build a backlog of work or whatever method you use to build your work. And we have to consider these three things. What's new? What are we enhancing? And what are we maintaining? Because when we do our strategy, we often think of everything as brand new, but we have to remember some of our capability and capacity has already been utilized or will be utilized by regular maintenance, internal operations. Some of it will be utilized by enhancing things that we've gotten feedback on that need to be adjusted or tweaked or improved. And then we also have room for some new things. And we have to balance all of those needs against the capability and capacity we have. So then when we do planning, we say, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to do some of this for a maintenance. We're going to do some of this for enhancements, and then we're going to do some things for brand new things. And so we sequence the work in a way that allows us to build capability, build new features and functionality, and build brand new things concurrently while we're actually all aligned with the strategy we're trying to achieve. And we can directly link the work we're doing now, the work we're doing next, and the work we're doing later, all the way up through the strategy in our organization. What happens is this. So before, where we saw all of that unplanned work just blow up our ability to deliver new things, or even the things we were planning to deliver, now, if we control our capability and capacity and align it with our strategy, we're able to set our planned work because we know it's aligned with what we're trying to achieve. Then, because we have little, if no unplanned work coming in, we want to reduce that. It's never zero. There's always going to be something. That's okay. Excuse me. But we want to reduce, if not eliminate, unplanned work. But hey, now that I've reduced the amount of work that I was going to do because I've removed things that weren't aligned with my strategy, and I've reduced the amount of unplanned work that comes in, I've unlocked capacity. I've unlocked capability that was trapped by having to address these other issues. And now I can add additional work. I could do more towards my objective, or I could try to innovate and try new things that we haven't done before. Because I'm not overworked and trying to fix things, I have an appropriate amount of work, which also allows me to do more and help innovate and then escalate what we're trying to do to the rest of the organization. So this is the result of actually helping to literally joining, I'm trying to find the right word, joining our operational capability with our strategic planning. And then what we're really saying is we want to build an impact delivery system. So when we have our objectives and our metrics and our targets, when we have defined our strategic value and our objectives and all the good stuff we've done at our tier 1 and tier 2, when we get to our tier 3, we're now completely aligned and we're driving towards the impact of what we're trying to deliver, not just deliver things, but deliver things that are going to help us achieve our goals, which makes it the most important thing. And so that's just a little bit of a taste, a very high level, but this is how we begin to start applying our strategy and our execution together to achieve those goals. So thank you for taking the time to listen. And if you have any questions, that'd be great.
So we have a few comments, Adam, not quite questions, but thank you so very much for that very riveting presentation. And we'll definitely, if this is what we got to know, we're definitely going to be looking forward to that day one of our 2024 summit when you speak at our symposium. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's pull it up and see. So one person has shared, when you were describing some of these scenarios, they said it sounded like it was really a deficiency of cascading. Yeah. That same person shared, could you provide an example of differentiation for a government organization?
Sure. So in this case, it's not really this works for any organization because it's really based on the objectives and the outcomes we're trying to achieve. So the essence is two things. We're trying to eliminate unnecessary effort, right? What isn't going to help us achieve that goal? And then we're just trying to do the things that actually will help us achieve those goals. So in a governmental organization, we're serving our constituents, we're serving our communities. We also have to be fiscally responsible internally because we're using usually public funds. So it's the same methodology. It's just a matter of what the outcome is we're trying to achieve. So efficiency doesn't always mean profit. It could just mean making the best investments in the parts of the community or in the areas that my agency is responsible for more efficiently and more impactfully.
All right. And guys, forgive my screen. I'm in transit. I'm actually out of the country. So you know how that goes. We have another question from, I'm seeing Ms. Thomas, and it says, what is the difference between the key result and outcome of an objective?
Ah, excellent point. An outcome could be defined as a key result. So I'm just using the word outcome as a general, so a generally a larger term. To me, an outcome is something we've delivered in some way, whether we've produced it or created it or built it, whatever that is directly connected to driving an outcome that an impact, driving a measurable result to our market. One way to measure that result would be a KR, key result. So you could have objectives and key results. You have KPIs. An outcome would be described by one of those things.
Okay, good stuff. Another is, can you give any examples of tier 3 and tier 2 actions?
Sure. So at tier 2, we really want to understand our alignment with our objectives, right? The alignment with what we're trying to achieve. So tier 2 is telling me here is what we, as this or part of the organization, is going to focus on that aligns with our tier 1 objectives, right? Tier 3, between tier 2 and tier 3, we're actually saying, here's the work we're actually going to do. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this, the strategic framework and bringing it down to make more of a tactical choice. So what I'm doing here is now creating a tactical enablement of driving this backlog that's aligned with our strategic objectives and goals. So the only difference here is when I bring it down to people, we're usually talking about teams of people. So my team is responsible for this whatever that aligns with this initiative, that aligns with this objective, that aligns with this theme, that aligns with this mission and vision. So it's just really cascading that all the way down to people. What I don't do is utilize the same KPIs for each group of people. So for instance, people that are developers, for instance, aren't going to be judged on the impact of what they've delivered, because that's a product manager's job to define a product for impact. For a developer, I'm going to use KPIs like quality and throughput for understanding how well they are performing.
Okay. And guys, if you'd like to ask a question, you literally just have to go into the Q&A at the bottom in your toolbar, and you can type your live question there, and so that Adam can answer you live as well. So from Noreen, we get, in terms of building capacity, how do you focus on transformative processes while optimizing situational, current, and ongoing operational functions and initiatives?
I
I
love that
know,
question,
quite a mouthful.
but it's a very pertinent question. There's always going to be a time when we're moving from one way of doing things to another way of doing things, and there will be a transition. There will be a time where there's a slightly elevated level of work because we have to do both things while we're decreasing one and increasing the other. So part of that is communication, letting people know that this is what we're doing and this is what's going to happen. We don't want people surprised by the fact that there's going to be some challenging, not issues, but challenges when we do go from one thing to another. That's just it. The way I worry about capacity is a little bit different, because in reality, until we reduce the number of things that we don't need to do to be successful, we really don't know what our baseline capacity is. So what we're doing over time is trying to move from valuable work or impactful work to less, to away from not impactful work. Therefore, we're freeing up our capacity. We're getting a better sense of what it really is. And in some organizations, literally, they just keep hiring people as they find they need capacity. My perspective is reduce the amount of unnecessary work first to the lowest limit you can, and then you can see what you're able to deliver with that amount of capacity. Then you can ramp up where you see deficits. There's more to it. I hear you, Noreen. Come see me. We could talk in detail.
I know, and that's a good plug there, because after our Q&A, we'll cut off at a certain time, so then I can do a presentation, a brief presentation, telling you a little bit more about the summit. So our last question that we'll take today, I'll try to see how I can sum it up. It seems a bit scattered, but it's asking how to measure the gap, proximity to strategic impact, to know that an outcome is becoming a value. All right.
Ah,
So I guess it's speaking to value creation.
that's good.
Yeah.
So that's where we have to measure those lagging indicators. We have to do a few things. We have to understand. So number one, if we have a good understanding of what we're doing, what we're building or delivering. Number two, we want to align that with the outcome we're trying to achieve. So we basically say, I'm doing this to help increase the number of people that use this application. So I'm going to measure that, right? So the value is the number of people increase that use the application. So it's the challenge here are those lagging indicators. It takes some time to get to them. That's why they're lagging indicators. So we have to kind of have the organization understand that some of the information we'll need will be coming after we might have moved towards the next thing. So the way we control that is by reducing the amount of work in the system, increasing the amount of valuable work in the system. That frees up capability and capacity to actually bring things back when we have issues, and we can address them. So for instance, in this chart here, that blue area where we're saying added value work and innovation is actually work that can come back from impact results. We didn't quite get the result we're looking for. We've decided to try something different. It doesn't affect the planned work. It only goes into that blue area. So we can do both things. So we can get information that's come later. We still have capacity to do it, and it doesn't affect our current delivery capability or commitment. That's a little bit of how to do it, but believe me, that's a great question. It's important for organizations.
I know. Um, I know I said that was the last one as well, but I want to take this one. I think this is a good one, Adam. It says for some private companies, strategy goals are often scrutinized by the board of directors. This keep bringing up the yes effect. When does the closeness to strategic goal be enough to progress the goal?
Yeah, I think that so number one, I often am doing the strategy with the board, right? So here's part of it. When people are being critical, very often it's because they weren't part of the system that built that they're looking at. So one way to reduce that is to have them participate in the creation of the strategic goals. Therefore, if you have ownership of something and you have input into something, you're less likely to be critical later. Uh, we also, and I'll just say this generally speaking, it is critical that when we have executives that they agree to not only support this, but they uphold it by their actions. When people act in a way that's different from what they say, they actually affect the culture of our organizations. We have to be sure that everyone understands what the rules, right? What we're playing, how we're doing our work, what that means, what our change policies are, how we communicate with each other, when it's acceptable to add work, when it's not. Those are things that we have to just build over time in the organization as people see the more positive outcomes they're getting from this. So it takes time. It's really about people. The strategy, building the strategy is almost easier than right getting people to help drive and deliver that strategy. But it can be done, and it's usually done by the fact that they can see these changes, they see they're positive, and it helps the organization along. But the most important thing is we keep trying. We keep telling people, if you make this decision, this is probably the outcome. If we do another way, we probably get a different outcome. Just keep trying, keep assessing. Anything that becomes a negative, we can turn into a positive. It becomes an opportunity. All of this is this information helpful to me? Does it tell me what I need to do next? Does it give me a better perspective on what we need to, where we need to be and what we need to do? And just iterate through it. So I know people want to get this stuff done, but it takes some time. But really, it's about managing people and working with them and making them feel part of the whole system.
Mhm. Again, really, some really good questions, and thank you for those responses, Adam. And guys, if you have further questions, feel free to email us. You can send an email to us at strategyplusconsulting@outlook.com. Feel free to browse our landing page or even BSI's. And Adam, I think that's it for us. Thank you so much again. Let me just bring up my screen. You can go ahead and stop share.
Absolutely.
So I can just run through briefly. Yeah. Okay. Can you see screen there, Adam? Just for a
Yeah,
check.
there you go. Perfect.
All right. Let me just maximize. Okay, so again, all of this leads up to the 2024 Annual Caribbean Strategy Summit, as we had said in the introduction. We covered our theme as well. It's going to be based or geared around strategy execution. Last year's summit was geared towards key performance indicators and strategic performance management. In previous year, we covered strategic planning and those basic elements and using the 9-step methodology. As a matter of fact, that was emanated out of the Balanced Scorecard Institute. So this year, of course, we're going to St. Lucia. So come experience your executive training out in the Caribbean Isle of St. Lucia at the Royalton Resort. So we know that's going to be a big draw, not just for our Caribbean participants, but also international ones. Year on year, we do get a few participants hailing from various regions. Last year, we had some from the US. So we're looking forward, and the invitation is for everyone, both our regional and international guests that we have on this webinar today. So event one is the symposium. That's on June 27th. And event two of the summit is the actual strategy execution essentials course. Won't want to miss that. So it sort of builds on the conference in day one, and you leave off on day two with those tools and methodologies that you can take away to ensure that your organization is able to effectively execute their strategy. And of course, we'll have Adam with us on those both days. So our major collaborators and partners, of course, as you know, Strategy Plus is one of the global partners with the Strategy Management Group and the Balanced Scorecard Institute. We also have a local vendor that is collaborating with us, and that's HR Wise, local to St. Lucia, I might add. So I introduced myself already at the outset. I am the MD of Strategy Plus Consulting. I'm also the lead consultant, but I have started the what should I say? I've led or paved the way with the strategy conferences. I think it was something that was necessary for the Caribbean. And even though internationally, and I'm sure Adam will have experiences with that as well, where executives really dropped the ball as it relates to strategic planning, and more specifically for this conference for strategic execution. Here in the Caribbean, we also suffer that, where they've been to a lot of retreats, they've been part of the process, but they've not actually used much tools or methodologies in doing so. And that's what we're trying to bring to the Caribbean through these summits. Yeah, I myself have been certified in as a balanced scorecard professional and OKRs, KPIs, and so forth, and have been using the balanced scorecard 9-step methodology for over 10 years. So I can vouch that it's tried and proven. Okay, so the summit, day one and day two will be held at the Royalton, as I said, in the Hideaway. And in terms of our details, we will have at least 3 key BSI lectures on strategy execution. And then in the middle of that, we will straddle with symposium panels. 3 of them will have usually 9 to 12 regional industry panelists. We do industries, corporate or government. We do several different industries. So far, we have presence from telecommunications, from utilities, from manufacturing, I believe, oil and gas, and so forth. So it stretches the bandwidth, and each participant is really able to benefit from these sessions. At the end of the panel discussions, we do attendee Q&As, and we're hoping that the panelists are able to share all of their regional strategic insights as they share their challenges and lessons learned as it relates to strategic execution. So the lectures by the Balanced Scorecard Institute, we have one keynote on agile execution, adapting strategies and leadership in a dynamic world by David Wilsey. And then we have our 2 accompanying lectures, both by Howard Rom, the founder of the Balanced Scorecard Institute and the Strategy Management Group, as well as Adam will be doing our lecture 3. If you want to get more on the agenda, feel free to check out our landing page at www.strategyplusconsulting.org. So international speakers, again, this is who we have lined up. They may partake in moderating some of the panels. We'll let you know as the days draw closer. Panel topics, however, would cover leadership and governance in strategy execution, creating a performance culture for effective strategy execution, and again, some more on aligning and operationalizing strategy that Adam kicked off with today. Now, some of our regional or Caribbean panelists would be hailing, as I said, from banking. We have HR consultancy, oil and gas, as I mentioned. We have the telecommunications, airports, or aviation, I should say, utilities, and of course, we have your national banks as well. And as you can see, we are trying to get business not only from St. Lucia, our local market that we'll be hosting from, but also from other Caribbean islands. Yeah, we usually try to get a good bit. So we've yet to close off on some of the other speakers, so look out for it as we continue to update our confirmed speakers over the next 2 weeks. Yes, we are T minus 2 weeks till the summit. So last year's panelists, just to showcase, all right, again, various industries, various countries, and of course, we usually have strategists or strategic planners, experts in the subject area, as well as executives. We try to have a good mix of that as well. All right, day 2, we cover the C course, the strategy execution essentials. Again, this is just a snippet of what you can take away. And our approach is usually a very interactive one, where our Balance Scorecard team members would try to contribute to your strategic management and performance improvement initiatives. And of course, you get to learn from each other in addition to the facilitator, and leave with a toolkit of proven resources for effective strategy execution. Yeah. So who should attend? Of course, this is a list. We know that strategy is not relegated to the strategy management office. As a matter of fact, in your various organizations, you may actually not have a strategy management office, or you may just have one individual, one resource that is responsible for strategic planning and execution. However, strategy covers all functions in the organization. Everyone should be getting involved at varying levels, of course, and with varying input. So it's not an HR thing, as I said, it's not a strategy thing, it's not an executive thing. Strategy, strategic plan, and execution, it's everybody's business, because that ensures the success of the organization and its goals and objectives. So register now. As I said, you have 2 weeks. Yes, we would have had the webinars. You would have missed 1 and 2. Thank you for attending webinar 3, but this is the last of it. Adam was our last presenter. And so we look out now for the 27th and the 28th. That's our next major event, the actual summit. If you have questions, please feel free to give us a call at the number on the screen, email us, or simply visit the landing page, which has all the comprehensive details. We even have details for your accommodation if you are staying in St. Lucia. So again, thank you for coming. Apologies again for my very transparent look at Adam. Adam was actually giggling at me earlier about that. He said he had a nice quip for it. Are you going to share it?
No, I'm glad that I just say transparency is always important in every organization.
Definitely. So thank you everyone for attending, and I guess we'll see you at the summit. Have a good one. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Adam. Thank
Mike,
you, Candace.
thank you.
Bye.